Welcome to the Fast Break Podcast. We're your hosts for the Hoosier Network. I'm Ari Betterly here with Ryan Costello and Sam Elster for the Hoosier Network, and we are fired up to talk about this important stretch for IU women's basketball. I mean, things are getting intense.
There's only 4 more games left.
It's
in the
the
regular
middle of
season.
February, and there's 3 really important games this Hoosier team needs to win, and a game that we think they'll win, but still very important. So let's dive right in. But first of all, I want to ask, how's your guys' weeks going? I feel like that's important.
I feel like mine's going pretty well. Not too busy, which is good. I like that. Kind of slow, which is nice. What about you, Ryan?
I appreciate that this week's a little slowed down.
Yeah.
Their game's not till Thursday. It takes it a little chill before the next couple weeks ramp up.
Calm before the storm.
Exactly.
These big games and then the Big Ten tournament, which is the first week of April or March. I'm
and
speaking
it's in
ahead.
Indy.
It's Indy. Yes, I'm so excited.
No
for
need
that.
to fly to Minneapolis this year.
Although that was a fun experience,
It
I will
was.
say. Okay, anyways, let's recap Michigan first. I'll start us off here. This was such an interesting game. Indiana fell to Michigan 70-67 in a very tight battle. As we know, on the road in the Big Ten is never easy, but Caroline Striplin led all scorers with 28 points on 12 for 19 shooting. Lexis Bargesser also played really well. I saw a lot of effort out of her when watching the game, and she had 9 points and then a team high of 9 rebounds. Sydney Parrish, 14 points. Chloe Moore McNeil added 9. So, the team did really well offensively overall, especially that first 3 quarters. They were honestly dominating Michigan. I mean, it was a back-and-forth game, but they were playing very well. But then it was the fourth quarter, and Silas Swords was quiet the entire game, but came out and finished with 15 points, including 2 big threes that completely dominated Indiana, making a comeback. And then their player Hobbs finished with a career high of 24 points, which also kind of solidified in the fourth quarter that Indiana was probably going to lose this. There could have been a comeback, just didn't happen. Michigan shot 71% in that final quarter for context, and Indiana committed 18 turnovers, several in the last few minutes. So something we've seen in a lot of other games with this team is the turnovers. So yeah, and then the last thing I'll say from that was Terry Morin said you can't give a team like Michigan any extra possessions, especially on the road. So I think that kind of just as a whole wrap this up. But what do you guys have to think?
Yeah, I think that was definitely a winnable game for Indiana. Watching that and then until the fourth quarter, kind of seeing them collapse a little bit with those turnovers and just, of course, seeing Michigan shoot lights out. It was pretty hard to watch because I really thought they had this game in the bag. They were playing great all 3 quarters, but then the fourth came along and, they missed some key buckets and Michigan just could not miss.
Yeah.
I feel like we're seeing a common trend when they play these upper echelon teams in the Big Ten. They've just been so close.
So close.
But then they do things like turnovers or aren't able to knock down shots, and they ultimately don't get those wins. So that's why I feel like these next couple games, all these opportunities to really help solidify their reason why they should be in March Madness will be really important. But first, we should talk about Purdue because they did respond in a good way.
A highlight to mention.
Yes. After all of that fourth quarter naysay, not great juju for the IU women's basketball team, they really put it on to Purdue to begin. I feel like that Sydney Parrish said in her press conference they had 2 good days of prep before and practice, and she helped being one of the 2 Indiana natives on the team, focus the team in, and this is the team up north. We don't lose to them. They didn't. They won their 12th straight game against Purdue to keep the Barn Burner trophy, and they started it off 20-2 early in the first quarter, and you could just see the energy was really there for the team. And they played a really solid first half, and they still won by 22 points. But I feel like we saw in the second half kind of the team that we saw in those other great games
Like
against other
Michigan,
opponents.
yeah, or
where
USC.
Purdue's press really hurt them. What did you guys see about that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a dominant performance, of course. But, yeah, the press was really what Terry Morin was talking about. She didn't love the second quarter by the Hoosiers because she thought that they were slowed down a little bit. She wanted to keep the high pace, them controlling it and everything. But I think that, their fast break offense was pretty good though. I wrote about that actually in my takeaways, how, their transitions were actually, I thought, great, getting back on defense and, working the ball well on offense, finding good shots. But yeah, I mean, this was a supposed to win game, and they definitely did that.
I think the thing that impressed me the most was the 13 steals.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Sydney Parrish contributing to that too. I
They had
felt like,
4.
I mean, like you mentioned, she did not want to lose.
She
She had the
did
knee
not.
brace off, she said in the press conference, and she was full throttle. She was diving for the ball, stealing the ball. I mean, it was great to watch and have that fire as a leader, kind of leading her team like, no, this is how you're supposed to play Purdue. Regardless of what the standings look like, this is how you play Purdue. And she definitely showed that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
she showed the definition of that when she went to get the ball before it went out of bounds. Fell on the
I
people.
love the
Yeah.
Fell on the people that were sitting right there on the court
yeah,
and threw it up. I think it was to Shea Chesky?
Yeah, Shay.
yeah.
And that I feel like was the definition
Mhm.
of the effort that Indiana really needs to have throughout the rest of the
Yeah,
season if
yeah,
they want to win
definitely.
those games.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So speaking of that first team that they're going to face in these very important matchups in this next 2 weeks, Sam, why don't you take us away with Ohio State?
Yeah, this is a good team in the Big Ten. I mean, top 2 players, Big Ten junior Cody Mahome and freshman Jeloni Cambridge. Both are averaging a lot of points per game. I watched this game yesterday, I believe, when they took Iowa to
On Fox.
overtime.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a good game, and
It
this
was
team
good.
has fight, and they're gritty, and but they are 2-2 in their last 4 games. They lost by double digits on the road to USC and UCLA, but tough games in California for both of those against 2 of the best teams. So, I mean, they're averaging 80 points per game though, and only giving up 61.9. So that's pretty daunting to look at for Indiana. And they're not a strong 3-point shooting team as Indiana is, but they're also what could be helpful for Indiana. They're all right at rebounding. We know we've talked about this before. Indiana's not the best rebounding team, worse than the Big Ten, but they also lead the league in steals with 13 per game. With an IU having turnover issues, this could be a little bit of an issue. But this is a game that can be winnable for the Hoosiers, though. They're lucky that they have this one at home, and this would be a really big quad 1 win.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think this could be one of the ones that, could shake things up a bit. I mean, they've been so close in games like
Mhm.
UCLA, USC, those top quad 1 teams where they almost had it, like they could taste it, and then they just kind of fell behind at the last second. But I'd like to see Indiana overcome in this game and, kind of use their 3-point shooting to their advantage. I mean, they were pretty hot these past couple games with their 3-point shooting, and just that effort, that aggression, like Sydney Parrish had, using that against their highly aggressive, gritty team will be the way to stay in this, especially on their home court. And I think hopefully, although it's a Thursday, if this fan base is as dedicated as they have been, that they'll show up on a Thursday for an Ohio State matchup. What do you think, Ryan?
For a top 10 opponent, you
Yeah.
would think. There was a really good crowd against Purdue. The thing that I think about Ohio State the most is how Indiana hasn't been able. Their press is, I feel like, different than any other
So
team's
different.
press. I feel like the past couple years, Indiana's played Ohio State. That press has just been such a pain, and then that's what, even if IU had leads, got Ohio State back in the game. So I think that's something that they're really going to have to watch out for, and especially with how they didn't play super great against it with Purdue, I think that's probably the main point that Terry Morin's harping on in the practice.
I was about to say those practices definitely have so many drills where they're trying to break a press. But honestly, I kind of think that it's kind of like low key, though. I kind of think Ohio State and Indiana are pretty similar teams, though. I mean, at least on paper. But I think that these are both teams. Ohio State has honestly just gotten lucky with some of their other games against these Big Ten opponents. But I think if IU had finished those other games, I think they would be in a pretty similar spot as Ohio State.
100% agree. And, that's going to be important. But another ranked opponent back to back, Thursday to Sunday, they're going to need to withstand energy for is Michigan State. Another highly ranked team in the nation currently, a crucial quad 1 win that needs to be had if they want to make the NCAA tournament. But they're going to be on the road at Michigan State at their home base, which is very hard to play in on the road. They have some great players. Julia, is it Arad? I think that's how you say it. Averaging 15.3 points, 7.3 rebounds. Grace Vandersloot, junior from Oregon. She's made that transfer, but she's also been very defensive. But Indiana's won 3 straight of the 5 in their last 6 meetings, so I think that could be very helpful in this battle. But overall, what do you guys think? I think it's doable, but I also think on the road it's going to be a lot tougher than playing a team at home like an Ohio State, Michigan State on your home court.
I remember last year this game was crazy at
Yeah.
home. It was like 94-91. It was the game that Chloe Moore McNeil had her triple double in, and she was clutch in that victory. But Julia, I don't want to mess up her last name, so I'm not going to even
I
say
know,
it. But
yeah.
I remember during that game
Sorry,
last year.
Julia.
Sorry, Queen. She could not miss. I remember last year she was hitting all kinds of shots, so she's definitely probably the number one person on that scouting report. But they just shoot the ball so well, and their offense just works very, very nicely. So it's going to be a challenge to IU's defense.
Yeah.
I mean, sadly, throughout the season, we've seen that Indiana has a very hard time winning on the road. So, we'll see how they do, especially, playing at home Thursday, probably traveling to Michigan State Friday, maybe Saturday, just a quick turnaround. But I mean, they both play a pretty fast paced game. So I guess Terry's going to like that a lot and probably implementing that into practice also this week. But I mean, they're really going to need to try and control the game over Michigan State.
Yeah, I also think Indiana's struggled on those games where they have that quick break where it's been like the Thursday or a Friday game straight to the Sunday game. Like they'll play with a lot more energy that first one, and then the second one, which makes sense, would be a little more sluggish and a little less accuracy or aggressiveness. But I'm hoping to see that, they want it bad enough. They want to be in the tournament, and kind of pushing through in at least one of these games the next week. But some of the keys that Terry Moore mentioned during the press conference against Purdue was what they're going to have to do during this tough stretch. So the 4 things she listed was taking care of the ball, sound and disciplined team, got to hit shots and share the ball, and when assists are high, the turnovers are low. And I think these are all the things that we've mentioned throughout this entire season, but I think it's more important than ever right now.
They're very basic things that if they can do correctly, they've shown that they can beat teams that are quality teams, but if they don't do correctly, that's what's going to shoot them in the foot. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
I think this is a perfect list. I would just add rebounding.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Because, I think that's also going to be a very big factor in these, high stake games where, can be coming down to the wire. They got to get those second chance opportunities.
I feel like that with rebounding goes down to not having that clutch person in the paint that big that they just have missed so much from Mackenzie Holmes and her graduation this year. So I think Terry Moore said in the past that rebounding is like a mentality. It's just who wants it more. So
Yes.
Indiana's really going to need to want it more this next 3-game stretch against these talented opponents. But that leads us nicely into our hot topics.
Yes,
Are you guys
it
ready?
does. I am ready.
Yes.
Okay. So as we've been saying this entire podcast, this next stretch is going to be very tough for the Hoosiers. So what would you guys say, record prediction, how they're going to do in these next 4 games? Sam, we'll go to you first.
I'm gonna do 3-1. I think that they're very lucky that they're gonna be playing 2 out of 3 of the ranked games at home. They play their best brand of basketball when they're playing inside Assembly Hall. So I really hope and believe that they can win those 2 games against Ohio State and Maryland. I think that the win against Purdue, but I think that Michigan State, they're not going to come out with a win. I think that playing on the road is going to be really tough on them, and yeah.
Ari, what about you?
I was going to say something similar. I was the pessimistic one the last time, so I feel like I can't take the pessimistic take this time. So I'm also going to say 3-1. I think they are very fortunate to play Ohio State at home. I think they can win it if they're aggressive and assertive enough and scout them correctly. Then I say they definitely beat Purdue. That's a given. But then somehow I think they find a way to beat Maryland at home as well. I mean, this team knows what's at stake. And even Terry Morin said in a press conference against Michigan, Sydney Parrish, Chloe Moore McNeil, those guys, Yard and Gear Zone, they've all won a Big Ten championship. They know what's at stake. Not making the tournament, they know that's at stake. Even guys like Shea, she said, and Caroline, they've been on teams that have had lots of success. They understand the stakes here. So I'd like to see them play aggressive against those teams coming up. But then I think they're just going to lose on the road to Michigan State. What about you, Ryan?
I'm going to be opposite of you. I'm going to go more pessimistic
Okay.
just because I feel like those are
Realistic,
that's real.
perhaps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
realistic. We've just not seen this team be consistent against high quality teams in the Big Ten, especially. So I think they're going to go 2-2. I think they'll beat Purdue and they'll upset one of the 3 ranked teams that they'll play.
Which
in
one
a
do you
row.
think?
Yeah.
I kind of want to say Michigan State.
Okay.
I don't know why,
I
but
respect it.
getting that road
Alright.
win, I feel like if you're not going to win any of the 3, the road win you really want, because I feel like that's even more impressive
Yeah.
when
Than
the
a home
committee goes
win,
to look.
right?
Mhm.
So that's what I'm going to say for that.
Okay.
But
I
moving
respect
on
it.
to the second question, I feel like we've seen some of the starters been a little inconsistent, or some of the things that the team has done, they've been a little inconsistent, and that's what's led to some of these losses. So what position, or what player do you guys think needs to step up the most right now?
I
I'll
can
start
go.
with you, Ari.
Yeah. I'm going to say Shay. I think we talked about this before in other podcasts. We've really wanted to see, her kind of live up to this 3-point shooter that maybe Sarah Scalia was kind of filling her shoes. And we just haven't really seen that. And I just said in my notes, I would love to see her go off in these next couple of games. I mean, she's an experienced player in the Big Ten. And I think if she knows what's at stake, that maybe she'll just go for it. What about you guys?
Yeah, mine's gonna have to be Yarden. I think she hasn't really been that consistent since Big Ten play started. I think it kind of started on their West Coast trip
Mhm.
when she, started literally. I think she had a game where she only took 4 shots, and even in the game against Michigan, she had I think barely any points.
No, it was in single digits.
Yeah, single
which
digits,
is unusual
rare.
for what
yeah.
she's
With the leading scorer, you need that to be a little bit
Yes.
more.
As the team's leading scorer, you kind of expect consistent shooting and just shots that are going in. And, she really hasn't been the player to really contribute a lot of that. So, as one of the more reliant shooters and just scorers on this team, she really needs to step up.
Mhm.
I'm going to go with Chloe Moore McNeil. Terry Morin has said this in her press conferences before. They go as Chloe plays. And we saw that in Nebraska, arguably their most complete game. She had 15 points, 7 assists, and 7 rebounds, and was just all over the place. I think that type of Chloe in this next stretch and into the postseason, if they make it, is going to be essential to them having success. If she steps up and she's playing that way, then we'll see a different Indiana team that we've seen so far.
I hope to see an absolute animal come out of
Animal.
Chloe Moore McNeil.
I think so. With the things on the line, she's made the tournament every year she's played at Indiana. I don't think she wants to
Stop
end
on
her
her fifth year,
career
yeah.
Yeah.
off by not making it. But that kind of leads us nicely into the last question. The Big Ten tournament, if you win, you get an automatic bid. So even if you don't have a great record, you can win it and make the tournament. So who would you guys say is your dark horse team to win the Big Ten tournament?
It's
Not
the
like
final
the-
rose, like The Bachelor.
The final rose, like The Bachelor. Who would you give it to, like the dark horse? Maybe the first impression rose, but not really.
Why don't you start us,
you
Ryan?
go,
Yeah.
Ryan.
I'm gonna go with Illinois. Right now, they're on a record, a program record 8-game winning streak in the Big Ten. They have played some of their best basketball. They've beat opponents like Maryland, like Nebraska, and Shauna Green, I feel like arguably should be the Big Ten Coach of the Year. She's continually to take that program up. So I'm gonna go with Illinois. Sam, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know that about Illinois, that they're on an 8-game winning streak. That's really
I
impressive.
mean, they've just gotten better and better
Yeah.
each season, it feels
Yeah.
like. So it
Wow.
makes sense.
So mine's gonna be Michigan State. They haven't been as consistent this season in the beginning, but they've kind of found a spark towards the end of the season. They kept up with UCLA in the final minutes, and now they get a crack at USC. I think tomorrow, sometime this week. So I think that would be interesting. Like, they have losses against Michigan and Oregon, but I think that this is a team that also is willing to fight a little bit. They have Julia, that we were talking about before. I'm going to butcher her last name if I say it, but she's been dominating as a guard, leading the team in both scoring and grabbing rebounds, which is extremely impressive. But I think that this is a team that can compete with the UCLAs and the USCs, and I think that they can maybe make a deep run.
Yeah. I think that it's going to be honestly ultimately about how the bracket shakes up to be.
Yeah.
Because whoever has UCLA or USC, I feel like that's going to be brutal.
Yeah.
But my dark horse is kind of funny. You know why? Because why am I calling them the dark horse when considering they won the entire thing last year? Iowa, which is crazy to say. But since they're kind of sitting right around the same ranking in the Big Ten as Indiana, this team has a lot of potential, but has been back and forth this season as well. But this team knows how to win and peak at the right time. They have Lucy Olson, who's averaging 17.4 points a game, Sydney Folder, Hannah Stolke, plus they have a fan base who will come and support them and be loud in numbers. I guarantee, although Caitlin Clark's not there, they will still show up in numbers to Indianapolis. And I think they'll make a run in this tournament. So
I don't know if you remember last year in Minneapolis how they were doing their chant. Oh my god,
Oh
it was
my goodness,
so
so
loud.
loud.
Like it felt
Yeah.
like a Iowa home game.
it truly felt like an Iowa home game. I
Yeah.
posted on my X account, like, is this the Big Ten tournament or just a Caitlin Clark like
Yeah,
fan
are we at
club?
Carver Hawkeye
Yeah.
like east or west, or actually that'd probably be Carver Hawkeye north, I think. I don't know. I'm trying to think of my geography with Minnesota and Iowa. I
It's
don't remember.
close. It's close.
I mean, I'm sure even though Caitlin Clark won't be on the court, I'm sure since it's in Indy,
Oh, she'll be there.
She'll
definitely.
probably be
Courtside.
there.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I
She'll
didn't
be
even think
there.
about
She'll
that.
make herself known there. Yeah.
But it's going to be really interesting these next couple weeks, how
Yeah.
the tournament seeds shake out, because you have, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams that have between 4 and 6 losses. So really anyone can
Right.
get that last bye, that double bye.
That's
in
what
the
I was
tournament.
thinking. The Big Ten right now is very toss up.
Yeah.
There's
It's just
no,
like if Indiana went on a 4-game win streak, they'd be 12-6, and they could be up there for one of those higher seeds, maybe not a double-digit seed. So
yeah.
Mm.
I
we'll
think
see
right
how it
now
goes.
on the bracketology, it's looking like they might be a 10 seed. Am I correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
Okay.
the last 4. They're not the very last 4 teams, but they're like the one right before that. So
Which is crazy to
Oh,
say. And
wow.
I saw Oakland is ranked pretty high right now nationally, which is crazy because IU played them in the tournament last
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
Wow.
So now it's like all the tables are turning around. I
Mhm.
think they
Yeah.
were like a 10 seed or something close to that. I could be wrong, but
Yeah.
But yeah. So guys, I think we're going to wrap it here, but we've had so much fun talking about IU women's basketball, the Big Ten tournament coming up, and this exciting stretch for women's basketball. We'll make sure to keep you updated on all the results from this week and into next week as things shake up and start to wrap up. But I'm Ari Betterly here with Ryan Costello and Sam Elster on the Fast Break podcast, and we will catch you next week.